you everybody, I hope you're well. I wanted to do a YouTube video on my New Zealand long service good conduct medal set that I got a few years ago. I got this after the second lockdown during COVID when I went to work in the quarantine centres, and I had a bit of spare cash after I came back after a couple of 3 weeks, and I saw this on Trade and brought it. Always wanted a New Zealand war medal, but always a little bit out of my reach financially, but managed to get it with that money over from the quarantine work. As you can see, these are mounted medals. The New Zealand medal is undated, which meant the soldiers took part in both wars, which makes sense. And the long service good conduct medal is the Victorian issue, which again is correct timing. So the medals were awarded to Thomas Jones, who was originally from Chester. He joined the 65th Regiment of Foot on the 4th of November 1845 at age 19. And basically went straight from England and caught a boat and went to New Zealand. The 65th Regiment spent 19 years in New Zealand. It was the longest serving regiment in New Zealand. It was the 2nd Yorkshire North Riding Regiment, and they arrived in not dribs and drabs, but bits and pieces, landing in Russell in 1846 and in Wellington, and in this way they took part in both of the New Zealand wars. During a long service in New Zealand, the 65th Regiment got a nickname from Maori, the Hickory Pip, which was a bastardization of the 65th, and they had relatively good relations for warring sides. Thomas Jones, who was the awarded medal, spent over 20 years as a soldier. Didn't go by the rank of private. He did earn 4 conduct medals, 4 good conduct badges, and never tried by court-martial. He was invalided out of the army due to an arm injury, which I'll go into detail shortly. I've just drawn a historical picture on the screen now of the New Zealand medal, the reverse side, which you can't see very well because the ones I've got are mounted. But as you can see, this one's got no dates. Ones with dates are in the middle of that laurel wreath there. And another view, a view of the front, which you can see fairly well on the one I've got, but just a little bit clearer. The Victorian issue LSGC, or Long Service Good Conduct, awarded for 21 years good conduct, and this is a Victorian one with the scroll. So again, you can see the front with the Hanover picture, and the back can't see particularly well because of the mounting, but it's just got in relatively small for long service and good conduct, or you didn't get caught medal. Here are some pictures of the writing on the side of the medal, which is basically 2400 Thomas Jones 65th Foot on the LSGC, and on the New Zealand medal, again the same 2400 Thomas Jones 65th Foot. There is a little dent in there, must have been dropped at some point in the past, but it's pretty good considering the age and shown pretty well. The regiment's official nickname was the Royal Tigers, which they earned from their service in India. And above you can see the regimental cap badge, and shortly also the colours of the regiment as well. The 65th was in New Zealand in order to deal with the land wars, which came apart from the colonisation of New Zealand. They're in various parts of New Zealand, mostly in the North Island, and within the North Island they started far up north, the Flagstaff War, but also involved Hutt Valley by Wellington and the Wanganui campaigns, as well as the First and Second Taranaki War. One of the largest campaigns was in the Waikato, and although the 65th Regiment was involved in both Waikato campaign and in the New Plymouth campaigns. From the amount of evidence, I believe that Thomas Jones was only involved in the Taranaki campaign. Unfortunately, I haven't been able to find any photos of the soldier involved. Some of the regiment, both photos and watercolour pictures, and one of a sergeant who he dealt with. He was charged by him due to some nefarious activities. But yeah, the first watercolour you saw there was the 65th camp at Te Arei, New Zealand, Taranaki in 1860. You see Mount Taranaki in the background and the tents and flags of the 65th Regiment. This is a picture of the 65th Regiment on parade in Mount Elliot in New Plymouth in March 1861, and shows a medal being presented by potentially Lieutenant Colonel Young to Sergeant John Crowder and Private James Felling and John Greensmith. So chances are that the soldier involved with the medals was on this parade. Here is the same picture, but found in its original sort of condition, a sepia coloured one, and an album that I found on the web. Kind of looks more realistic and more authentic. So this next picture is titled Six Soldiers of the Light Infantry Company 65th Regiment. And from left to right, Bugler James Kendrick, Company Sergeant Major William Aitchison, Private Tobin, Lance Corporal John Lennox, Sergeant Feltham, and Sergeant John Russell. The location of the photographer is unidentified, and again there's the original picture just going through now, the sepia one, and the enhanced picture. So you can get a real sense of the uniform and how the soldiers looked at the time. These photos were taken by Lieutenant Urquhart of the 65th Regiment, who you can see in the picture there, and I think he's on the left. Mentioned him because not only was he 65th Regiment, but also on doing just an AI search of the soldier, Urquhart's name came up, and the soldier was involved in the theft from the lieutenant's belongings, which was quite interesting. So a connection to the soldier, but indirectly. So a couple more pictures. Well, this one's watercover of the 65th Regiment with a view of Mount Taranaki in 1860, and a photograph of the 65th Regiment's camp at Mount Taranaki. From the same album from Lieutenant Urquhart is a picture of New Plymouth. You recognise this if you know New Plymouth. It's on the seashore, and that's Sugarloaf Mountains there. And again, another one of Lieutenant Urquhart and some other officers. These are pictures of the officers, generally, well, not just the COs, but the officers of the 65th Regiment during the deployment. What did come with the medals was the National Archives documents, and there were 4 pages of this one. The first one is about obviously Thomas Jones, and it's his service in New Zealand. It states that the CO signed it. The soldier book is correctly balanced. Gives us his number. In fact, it's 2401, but his number is 2400. 65th Regiment of Foot. The details of when he enlisted: 1845. Granted good conduct pay at successors rates, and total service allowed to reckon until 30th of June 1866. So in total he did 20 years and 207 days, and his service qualifies him for pay and pension for that period of time. From service from the 29th of June to the 31st of July, so when he was fully discharged. Page 2 is a medal report in the case of being discharged, and it's a formal assessment of the soldier. So Thomas had a serious hand injury, a wound from a pickaxe whilst working in the earthworks, and this left him unable to raise his arm, and his thumb is weakened, and he cannot properly use his hand. So the surgeon states he is unfit for duty and he cannot re-enlist, and the disability is permanent. The medical officer then signs it off, and the approval and the discharge is made approved. Page 3 gives some interesting details. It gives a potted summary of Thomas, who's a labourer on joining. He's from the county of Chester, tested to the 65th Regiment at Liverpool in the county of Lancaster on the 4th of November 1845, aged 19 years old. Personal description on the discharge: 39 years old, 5 foot 6.5 inches tall, dark complexion, hazel eyes, brown hair, and he's going back to be a labourer. An intended place of residence is either Lancashire or Cheshire. So this indicates that he's leaving New Zealand after the 65th Regiment has gone back, but he's been medically discharged. And rather than staying in New Zealand, as a large number of 65th Regiment soldiers did, he returned to England. I can't find any, not that I'm particularly good at finding historical details per se, but I can't find any details of him being in the New Zealand Fencibles, who were soldiers who remained behind in New Zealand and made a life here. So I'm guessing he returned to the UK. Page 4 is basically a summary of the service. So again, 65th Regiment of Foot, Thomas Jones, gave me his service dates, a number of years spent in New Zealand, 19, number of years he's in defence. Character conduct, very good, possession of 4 good conduct badges, and his name does not appear in the regimental defaulters book and has never been tried by court-martial. Wounded in his left shoulder by a pickaxe at the headquarters of Te Arei in 1861 while on duty, arrived in New Zealand in the 1840s, stay continues to the late 1860s, and was then discharged in 1866. So these National Archives medals details came with the medals. I did actually, and therefore cost money to research, I did actually find some free research, the muster records of regiments, and I had a look up at the 65th, and I found Thomas Jones twice, which was quite good. There's quite a few records to look through, so I looked in 1850, and I found Thomas there. As you can see, I've circled both ones. And then again, I found him in 1864. This time he's got those good full conduct badges. I can't see if it actually increased his pay, but it was good for his pension. So yeah, it's just positive validation that the soldier was in New Zealand for that period of time, which I found quite worthwhile. So I did a generalized Google search to see if Thomas's name came up with his regimental details, and there were a couple of things. One's in December 1858, when Sergeant Nicholas was at the 65th Regiment and in charge of the Marsling Hill Guard at New Plymouth. He had to arrest and testify against 2 soldiers, Thomas Jones and William Lucas. I guess that didn't go anywhere regimentally because Thomas Jones, if it's the same person, I think it is, didn't get an entry into his regimental good conduct sheet. And the other mention was in February 1860, February the 3rd. This was in the Daily Southern Cross. Lieutenant Urquhart, whose picture we can see there on the left, his manservant, or his man, was Thomas Jones, and Thomas Jones invited a couple of drunk Marines to his house to rest for the night, and whilst the Marines were there, some equipment was stolen, and in the morning when Jones woke up with a hangover, he went looking for the stuff and found them not in the possession of, but near around where the Marines were, and there was a court investigation. Unfortunately, it doesn't say what the outcome was, but it's an interesting mention of the soldier. Okay, I'll stop there. Thank you for listening, and it's good to get a bit of history on the medals that I've got.